Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Undercover Fairladies. So where I'm at with the reassembly of the old girl today is I'm starting on electrical stuff, and what I'm aiming for is to bring the entire electrical system of the car back online, which is a major ordeal considering most of the wiring looms have been removed from the car. There's been a lot of custom wiring looms built by me, all the engine bay stuff and everything that you would remember from many episodes ago. I've also had to go through a lot of the wiring system, all in the dashboard area and everything. A lot of it had been very hacked up over the years. I had to replace a lot of it and repair a lot of it as well. And there's been many changes made to the vehicle as far as the electrical system goes, with a whole new engine management system, IC-7 dash, all the fuel pump controls, everything like that's all completely new because all the old stuff was just kind of tossed in the bin. So I've been busy toiling away with all that sort of stuff, and it's all going very well, and I'll give you a bit of a look at all that shortly. But one of the areas that I got kind of hung up on was I thought I'd really like to be able to get the doors back together, just because there's a lot of stuff associated with the doors, lots of stuff hanging around from the doors, door trims, etc., and the same with the rear hatch area, all the plastics in the back and all that sort of stuff. I'd really like to get a lot of that stuff back on the car, and particularly with the doors, it means getting everything functioning again in the doors electrically. And part of that is, of course, well, speakers in the doors and kind of speakers in the back. They're just where I ended up through trying to get these doors back together. So we'll have a quick look at what I've done with the speaker arrangement in the car, what was in there before, and then we'll move on to a lot of the wiring in the car, engine management system, dash, etc. So this is one of the speakers that I pulled out of the front doors. As you can see, bit of MDF. Look, it probably did the job in its day, but it's very, it's been very water affected and all that sort of stuff. And it's a very low-end Pioneer coaxial speaker that's in there. It's all very nasty. It's all sort of seen better days. It's, not real good. So this is what was in the fronts. The rear had the same speakers mounted in there as these, so they obviously bought 4 of them. And it had a really nasty Chinese flip-out screen stereo in it, which got chucked in the bin basically the day I got the car home. So what am I replacing these with? Alright, I'll go and grab one of mine and I'll show you what I've come up with. So this is one of the new door speaker setups that I'm fitting into the car. These are some Rockford Fosgate 6.5-inch splits, so they obviously have a separate tweeter. This is the crossover setup for them. You can see that straight away they're a hell of a lot deeper, the speakers, in comparison to these Pioneer dual cones. They have a lot more throw. They're a much higher quality speaker. And that creates a problem in the fact that there's not that much room in the doors, depth-wise, to run speakers like this. There is enough, though. I must say, this is the sort of final thing that I've come up with. So what it is, this is just the commercially available. I bought it on eBay or Amazon, I think. It's a, it's a replacement speaker holder for Z32 that you can buy. And I have modified it because I wasn't very happy with it when I got it, even though it does fit. It's realistically not that much better than this one that I pulled out, other than the fact that it's obviously professionally made and it's out of a more weather resistant material. But the problem that I had with it is it mounts the speaker in a pretty crappy spot. Very similar to how this one is. If you look how I have the speaker here, you can see it's down a lot lower in the setup there, and that's for a reason. You can see what I've had to do here to make this fit. You can see that I've actually recut the hole in the back and slipped it down and to one side. You can see where I'm hanging down below there, and I've actually cut all the bottom out of the original piece to get it down into that position. And I've used these spacers here, so they're just a plastic spacer for a 6.5 inch speaker. They're about, I think they're about 15 mil, but if you notice here that it's tapered, it's only about 8 or 9 millimeters on the top. So that was me being a bit sneaky, like to get it to fit. Like it's very touch and go, this depth fitting. There's two things to contend with. You've got clearance on the door trim, and you've got clearance up to the glass in the car. You know, the glass obviously hitting the magnet on the back of the speaker because it is so deep and has such a large magnet on it. But it is doable, and I have done it. So this setup here clears the door trim, which is why this adapter is tapered down at the top. And full depth at the bottom gives me clearance on the glass, because the glass does come down on an angle, you know, so it needs more clearance at the bottom of the speaker than the top. So that was how I was able to push this in at the top to get door trim clearance and have it still sitting out at the bottom and clear the door trim, but that also helps with the glass. So this does both. It clears the glass, clears the door trim, and seems to work pretty well. What I'll show you one of these in the car. I've got one side mounted up in the car at the moment, so you can see how it's all wired up and everything. I'll throw the door trim on, and I'll show you why it was so important to change the location of this speaker compared to where it comes on these PVC speaker holders, and also where it was on this thing. It's up way too high. So that's our right hand side front door there, guys. You can see what that looks like there, how it's all sort of mounted up in position and how it's all been wired up. You can see the tweeters mounted up there on the sail panel. That's the matching Rockford Fosgate tweeter that goes with this set, you know. You can also see I've put Dynamat in behind where the speakers sit, just to sort of help deaden the doors up a little bit. Mainly in just that area behind where the speakers are, and I'll probably throw a bit of Dynamat over this black mount too before it's finalised. So far, I'm pretty happy with it all. It's taken a lot of effort to get it all to fit up how I want it to fit up, and as you can see, it looks pretty good. So what I'll do now, guys, I'll throw this door trim back on, and I'll show you why it was so important to move this speaker so far out of the position where the hole was cut. Alright, let's get the door trim on. So that's roughly the position of the speaker there now in the bottom of the door. So you can see why it was so important to bring it down into the position that it's now in. You know, and that's down as far as it can go. The edge of the speaker, or the edge of the speaker spacer, is sitting about 5 mil off the bottom of the door trim there. And you can imagine I've moved it, oh god, 20 mil, 25 mil down, and you can imagine what that would do to the speaker. It just moves a lot of it up in behind the door trim, and you just have nothing down in this section here. And there's no reason why it can't be mounted in this position. Obviously you can see that I've done it, and it's, you know, it's roughly where it needs to be. It'd be better if we could maybe even bring it a little bit lower, but it's just sort of not possible. But at least most of the speaker cone is exposed now instead of half of it being up inside the door trim. So you can see why I had to taper that spacer. We've got clearance here at the bottom, but it's getting tight up the top. We do have clearance, but that's after I've taken about 8 mil, 7 or 8 mil off the top of that spacer to enable it to fit up in there. I've left the covers off. I needed the covers off so that I could work all this out, because, you know, with the covers still on there, it was impossible to see how much clearance we had behind the door trim and everything. So while the speaker covers are off, I have straightened them up, because particularly this driver side one had been kicked around a bit over the years, you know, and had a few dents and was all sort of out of shape. So I've straightened both of them back out, and repainted them, so they're actually ready to go back on now. So I'll throw this one on quickly. You can tell me what you think about it. Oh yeah, and there's that tweeter again up there. It just disappears into that you know, that sail panel when the window's shut. I figured that was the least intrusive thing to put it in, rather than cut a hole in the door trim or anything like that. Basically it's just screwed on through the back of this little sail panel here. You can still buy those, they're pretty cheap. And I figure it's something that doesn't really impact on the vehicle. Like, there's no way in the world I'll be, you know, drilling a hole through the door trim to put something like that in. Just not the way I roll, folks. Anyway, let's get this speaker cover on. The speaker cover's back on. Like I say, it's been repaired, repainted, and all that sort of stuff. And looks pretty good in my opinion. It all just looks very factory now, other than the little tweeter up there. No one would ever know, and it should sound pretty good. The only change that I made with these covers, this one here for the other side, I removed the cloth that was on the inside of them. They have a very, very thin cloth that's between this this sort of plastic frame and the mesh, and it disintegrated when I took them off to try to paint them, and there were already pieces missing out of it, and they looked patchy. And I thought, well, you know, it looked pretty crap anyway, better off to just remove the whole lot of it. And obviously when there's something behind it, you can't tell that you know, there's no cloth in there, it just looks black. And you know, if anything, you can sort of slightly see the speaker through there, which doesn't worry me in the slightest. Anyhow, so that's what I've done with the front doors, guys. I guess we should go and have a look in the back. In the back here, that's what I'm currently working on. I've got a pair of Alpine 6.5-inch splits. Crossovers mounted sort of down there and sort of roughly in the same spot on the other side. You can see they're mounted in the stock boxes. However, I have lined the boxes with Dynamat. We are, of course, replacing another pair of those really cheap and nasty Pioneer dual cones that we saw in the front setup. There's another set of those in the back. Pretty dodgy job on the wiring. Still had the factory Bose amplifiers in there. They've all been stripped out though now. There's no point having crap in the car that's not being used for anything. All the speaker wiring's been replaced through the whole vehicle. You can see we've got, you know, stuff there and sort of heavier stuff running all the way through the main parts of the vehicle. So that's how it's going so far. Obviously there'll be an amp mounted in the back, probably behind the passenger seat somewhere there, and maybe a small sub either behind the seat or in one of these corners or something. Again, nothing ridiculous. As long as we've got decent tunes in here, that's all that matters. Just quickly, one thing I didn't mention while I've got this left hand side speaker enclosure uncovered. Where I've got the tweeters in here, these boxes are originally ported from the factory, so they have like a sort of a hole and a stick that runs down inside that's sort of a port thing. So all I've done here is I've just basically drilled that out, got rid of the stick thing that goes down inside there, and you know, did it pretty precisely so this tweeter will just sit nicely in there, and then bonded it in with some urethane on the back. Worked out really well. I actually tested these boxes earlier on when I was testing these speakers out, and that's what led me to putting the Dynamat on them. Even turning the volume up slightly, and the plastic just started to resonate really, really badly. So I thought, oh God, I knew I had some Dynamat sitting around here somewhere. So I thought, yep, I'm going to friggin' hit them with some Dynamat. So they're a lot deader now. Obviously you can't tell without a comparison, but it's quite dead now doing that. Anyhow, just thought I'd touch briefly on that. It's something I sort of whizzed past and didn't even mention. Alrighty. So obviously this is another area of the vehicle where I've been spending a lot of time getting all the Haltech stuff wired up. Previously all of the engine side of the wiring loom was done. I am, however, having to make some changes to that just because, you know, things have sort of changed a little bit with the car and what I'm expecting from the engine, etc. But what you can see under there's a There's the ECU, obviously, the Elite 2500. There's also a WB2 wideband controller. There's a CAN hub sitting down there. And there's an I/O expansion box over there as well, just to try and give me enough ins and outs for the vehicle, because I am running a lot of sensors, which you need to do to keep stuff alive properly. And this is this will be behind my passenger seat on the left hand side of the vehicle, and this is my fuel pump controller arrangement that I've set up. You can see from this arrangement that it's actually a setup for 2 fuel pumps, even though when I initially did the mods on the fuel pump carrier in the tank, it was only set up with 1 pump. I'm actually going to have to pull that out and change it and fit another pump in there, or get another pump hanger, because as I say, things have changed a little bit. I'm expecting a lot more from it now. I want to kind of push the horsepower level a little bit further with the car, so I'm really going to need to run 2 fuel pumps now. So you can see I'm running a solid state relay, which is that guy there, and that's mounted on a big heat sink. And then I've got a 50 amp normal relay over there that runs the other pump. And then there's the fuse holder there, which is carrying 2 30 amp fuses, one for each fuel pump. And the supply there, a pretty heavy looking cable that comes through directly from the battery in the front. So with the solid state relay, it'll be controlling the primary pump. So when you're just sort of, driving around normally, it'll be PWM controlled by the ECU, so that I can regulate how much fuel is running through the return system. So you're not, pushing a ton of fuel through and heating the fuel up. It's a good way to do it. It'll run all the time, but at a certain point, the second pump will be triggered to sort of come in when the car's on boost above a certain RPM, all that sort of stuff. But basically, the solid state relay will be controlling the main pump. Solid state relays are awesome. The biggest issue with them is people tend to not mount them with a heatsink sometimes, because they're probably just not aware how important it is. They will generate a bit of heat, and obviously that tends to kill electronic components. So as long as it's mounted on a decent heatsink, it should be very trouble free. So that's set up. Obviously you can see that's taken a bit of time to set up as well. And the other thing is the dash, which is just sitting over there. So we'll head around the other side. It's just temporarily sort of propped up in position. But the whole electrical system of the car is actually live now, so I can turn the dash on to give you a bit of a look at it. Alright, let's head around that side. Alrighty, one of the goals that I have obviously is I want to try and get the dashboard back in permanently. But before I do that, I want to make sure that all the wiring that's going to be sitting behind there is as complete as possible, because, as you guys would be aware, there's nothing worse than working on wiring in dashboards and up under dashboards. And even the way it is at the moment, it's a huge pain in the bum. But it's, I've got better access than if I put the dashboard and everything back in. So yes, it's just wiring. So I might just quickly turn on the IC-7. Oh, there it is. So it is working. It still needs a little bit more work. Like I say, the wiring's not finished. There's still a lot of mucking around I've got to do with more sensors and moving things around, making sure everything works 100%. But that's my sort of custom layout that I've set up with a custom graphic that I built in the middle, a Fairladyz Nissan emblem. Jesus, that took some work. But anyway, but it's all a labour of love, guys. It's all a labour of love. But it is getting there. It's been fairly straightforward, although it has been a lot of work. I'm basically having to troubleshoot every circuit on the car to make sure that it is all kind of working, and I am at the point now where just about everything works. There are a few little issues with a few things. I found a bad headlight relay and a few things like that that kind of had me stumped for a while. But overall, she is certainly getting there. So that's pretty much where I'm at so far this week, guys. Obviously, every week's something new. It's going to keep continuing. As always, guys, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always a bloody pleasure to have you here. Remember to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave me a comment if there's anything you'd like to ask me about with the car, with how it's going, or what my future goals are for it, where it's kind of heading. And yeah, I'll bloody well see us on the next one. Cheers.